Welcome, everybody. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to multiply and divide decimals. And I didn't speak about that the other night, but I'm going to speak about it tonight. So first thing you probably should do is, if you're watching this video, is stop the video or pause the video, excuse me, and copy down what you see on the screen. Okay. Multiplying and dividing decimals, and then the rule, and then a couple of the practice problems. So stop the video, do that. And all right, so we're going to pick it up with how do we do this? You know, this business of multiplying decimals, and it's pretty much just like the rule says here. When we're multiplying decimals here, we're supposed to multiply like normal. Okay, you do it just like normal. You multiply, and then at the end you count how many numbers are to the right of the decimal place in both the original numbers, and then place the decimal that many places to the left in your answer. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. So we better just show you. Okay, teacher, can you just show me? I remember asking that when I was learning math. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do number one here, which is 4.36 times 2. Okay, this is a multiplying. So I'm going to follow those steps. So I'm going to rewrite the problem as 4.36 here times 2, because that's really how we normally do multiplication. Okay. I want you to notice right off the bat that I did not line up any decimals. If in the number 2, it's assumed to be right where I got this white dot here. Okay. So when you add and subtract decimals, which we learned earlier in the week, you have to line up the decimals all the way in, including in your answer when you add and subtract. But when you multiply, you don't. Okay. So I wrote out the problem like this. Then I'm going to do 2 times 6, and I'm going to get 12, right? So I'm going to go put the 1 here and put the 2 down here. Then I'm going to do 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. And then I'm going to go 4 times 2 is 8. All right. The big question, and this is the important concept when you're doing multiplying decimals, is, hey, teacher, where do I put the decimal point in my answer? Okay. In my rule, I said, count how many decimal places there are to the right of the decimal place in both numbers. So here's what I mean. Here are the two numbers. There's 2 and there's 4.36. Those are the two numbers right here. Okay. How many total numbers are there to the right of the decimal point? You'll see there's 2 in 4.36 and there's none in 2, right? So there's 2. So what you do is you start on the far right of your answer here. You start right here, okay? And you go 1, 2. You move it 2 places to the right, and there's my answer, okay? That is my answer is 8.72. That's how you find the answer. Let's do it again, okay? I'll show you another example here. Let's take the problem. Oops, I should pick white here. Okay, 0.92 times 9. Okay, and again, I just wrote the problem out like normal, times. I'm not worried about where decimals go yet. Then I'm going to do 9 times 2. Okay, 9 times 2 is 18. So put the 8 here, put the 1 up here. 9 times 9 is 81, plus 1 is 82. Okay. Now, where does the decimal go? In the whole problem. Notice I'm saying whole, because what if it was 9.76 or something? Then I'd have 5 numbers to the right, or actually 4. But there's just 2 numbers to the right of the decimal here. Okay, these 2. So I'm going to start over here at the far right and go 1, 2, and that's where I'm going to put my decimal right here. 8.28 is my answer. That's how we find the decimal point. I'm going to do number 3 over here kind of fast. Okay. But I want you, it's a funny thing going on with me. Okay. So 5 times 6 is 30. And then notice that these decimals are not lined up yet, or they're not going to be lined up. 5 times 1 is 5, 6, 7, 8. 5 times 5 is 25. And if I wanted to, I could say 5 times 0 is 0. Then it's 0 times everything here really would give me 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's it, zeros. Add everything up, just like a normal multiplication problem. Okay, add everything up here. This is a 5 and a 2 and a 0 here. Okay, I just added these numbers up here. Where do I put my decimal? Well, if you look at the problem itself, in the whole problem here, in this whole problem, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 digits to the right of the decimal point. So I'm going to start here at the far end and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here is where my decimal goes. Final answer is 0.2580. Okay. I won't do number 4 for the sake of time. I'll just ask you if you could look at 73.8 times 0.06. When you get your final answer, you've done your math. How many places are you going to move that decimal point starting on the end here and going 1, 2, 3? How many places would you move it? Okay, answer should be, looking at this, there's 1 here and there's 2 there, 3 places. Okay, so that's the rule for long multiplication. And there's one other little detail, because sometimes you'll run into this in a story problem. Put your longest number, I say longest, with the most amount of digits on top. Like, see the number 3 here? See how it's got like more digits? Okay, I put it on top. In the smaller, the one with fewer digits on the bottom. Now, the reason that matters is because you could run into something like, if you had 0.2 times 0.765. Okay, I'm writing this in the upper right hand corner here. Okay, and then you go to do multiplication. You see how that's all messed up? How do I do that? Really, I'm supposed to be multiplying it. It's upside down, just to make that clear. So the one with the most amount of digits is generally the one on top. Okay, all right, that's long multiplication. I'm going to talk about something called front end rounding also, which is a concept that's important. So let me go ahead and pause this video and copy what you see on the screen. Okay, let me talk about front end rounding. This word front end means you're picking the number at the very front end of the number, okay? And then multiplying decimals, okay? Here's the rule. The rule is that you round each number to the leftmost, okay? The one that's on the farthest left place that does not have a 0. It can't be 0. Okay, it cannot be a 0. Okay, I'm going to do this little thing here, draw an X. It cannot be a 0, and then multiply the rounded numbers. Okay, so let's look at an example of what that actually looks like. Use front end rounding. It says in my problem that's supposed to be an E there. Okay, front end rounding to estimate. This is estimate. Okay, the answer to 2.84 times 0.72. All right. Front end rounding means you round to the leftmost number. That's a number, not 0. Okay. In the number 2.84, the number on the far left is 2. So step 1 when you're rounding is always to underline the place you're rounding to. Step 2 when you're rounding is to look at the number to the right, which is an 8, and ask yourself, is this number to the right 5 or more? If the answer is yes, you round up your original place that you're rounding to 1 number. So this answer, this number here, front end rounding 2.84, it becomes 3. That's it. Everything else is just zeros after that place that you're rounding to. Okay, so this would become 3 times, I'm saying times because I'm looking back at this original problem here. Front end rounding says the first digit on the left, the farthest one on the left, but not 0. So it wouldn't be this. It would be this 7 here. I'm going to underline the place I'm rounding to. I'm going to look to the right and see that the number is not 5 or more. So it becomes 0.7, and that's it. Okay, notice everything afterwards, even if there were 6 digits over here, they're all just 0 because I'm rounding to this place right here. Okay. Now, If I multiply 3 times 7, you guys know that 3 times 7 is 21, I hope. If not, use a calculator, but start studying your times tables, okay? In the original whole problem here, how many numbers are to the right of the decimal point? 1. So I'm going to start over here to the far right and move it one place. I'll just model this for you here. The answer would be 2.1. That's my final answer. That's front end rounding, leftmost number that's not 0. When you round, underline the place, look to the right. If it's 5 or more, go up 1. Then everything to the right of that number that you're rounding to is zeros, okay? All right, let's look at a couple story problems here. And again, if you'd like, you can pause the video and copy this. All right, I'm going to jump into this right here. And let's pick a nice color here. Oh, just this bluish color here. Jane earns $14.90 for an hour of overtime. How much does she earn for 2.3 hours of overtime? Okay, this is a story problem. It's actually a multiplication problem because we just learned how to multiply, okay? So she makes $14.90 for her overtime work. If she works, that's per hour, okay? That's an hour. I'm just gonna underline, put a box around this to model this. That's how much she makes 1 hour. If she worked 2.3 hours, so I'm going to put 2.3. Notice I'm not lining up the decimals because I'm multiplying. We only line up decimals when we add and subtract, and we have to line them up when we add and subtract. And you'll notice also, again, I'm multiplying these two numbers, 14.90 times 2.3. Notice which number I put on top. I just mentioned this to you, the one with the most digits. So it actually makes sense when you're trying to multiply, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and just do the math of multiplying that. So 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 9 is 27. Put the 2 up here. 3 times 4 is 12, 13, 14. Put the 4 here and the 1 here. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. And I highly encourage you to do what I'm doing in this moment right now. Erase everything you just put on top so you don't confuse yourself. It only takes you a second to do that. So you might as well take the second to do that, okay? This next row here, okay, I'm going to go to the next digit and do 2 times 0 is 0. Notice where I put that 0. That's really important. Don't forget that. You skip one. I'm basically trying to stay right under the digit. I'm sort of under the digit I'm multiplying. 2 times 9 is 18. Carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9. And then 2 times 1 is 2. Now I've done everything I need to do. I've done all the math. Just going to add things up here and get 14 plus 1 is 3. There, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 7, 0. That's a 0 here, okay? All right. 3,400. Is the final answer 34,270? No. What would the final answer actually be? Look at the original problem. Look at how many place numbers are to the right of the decimal. You should be thinking, I see 3. Start with your decimal point over here and go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. The answer is 34.27. That's a lot different than 34,270, okay? Decimal points change everything. They're really important. All right, let's look at the next one faster. 1 inch equals, so you got 1 of an inch, okay, is 2.54 centimeters. A 12-inch ruler, I got a 12-inch ruler, is how many centimeters? So again, notice I'm putting my 2.54. I'm putting my number with more digits, even though 2.54 is technically smaller than 12, okay, right? But it'll just be easier when I'm doing the math. Then I'm going to multiply everything out real fast here. 10, this is a 5, and then we get a 4, 5, and a 2, and then we add everything up. Sorry about my writing. 8, 4, 10, 1, 3. Okay, 3048, okay? In the original problem, there are 2 digits, so I go 2 over, and that's my answer. All right, that's story problems. That's multiplying, okay? Let's take a look at dividing fractions. So take a moment, pause the recording, copy down what you see on the screen. Okay. Having said that, let me jump right into this here. Okay. So I got the first problem is, we'll call this problem number one. Okay. Is 4.374 divided by 0.03. So here's how the divided by is, this is the divisor here. So it really is, it'd be like this: 0.03 into, we're dividing it into 4.374. Pay very close attention to where you're putting your decimals. Okay. All right. Now, if I'm doing this in long, like by hand, okay, just as a matter of review here, here's what I would do. Okay. And the reason why I'm saying if I'm doing this by hand is because when you get to, in this class 70, you can start using a calculator. All right. And for the rest of your math. But once in a while in life, all our computers go down and we don't have a calculator and we have to do something by hand. It's nice to know how to. And here's the rule. When you're dividing decimals, you have to get rid of the decimal, which means, you see how this is two places to get rid of it? You would move the decimal two places to the right. So it would be right there. So now you don't have a decimal anymore. Okay. So whatever you do on the left-hand side here of this little line here, the division sign symbol here, I have to do the same. So I got to move it two places here because I moved it two places to the left of it. And then I'll put it right above there where it goes. Then I would do my long division. 3 goes into 4 one time. That's step 1. Step 2 is to multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. Step 3 is to subtract. 3 from 4 is 1. Step 1 is to divide. Will 3 divide into 1? Nope. Bring down 13. 3 goes into it 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract and I get a 1. Will 3 divide into 1? No. Bring down to 7. 3 goes into 17 5 times. 5 times that's 15. Subtract and get a 2. Will 3 divide into 2? No. Bring down to 4. 3 goes into 24, 8. And that'll be my final answer, because what I'm going to get down here by multiplying is a 0 when I subtract. Okay. So I have 145.8, and that is in the right place. Okay. That's how you do long division, kind of a quick review. However, I want to tell you that at this point in math, you could probably just punch it into your calculator. And what you would do is, if I go back here, I would literally on my calculator, I would press in 4 and then the decimal point, which is right on your calculator, 4.374. Then I would hit the division symbol, which looks like this on your calculator. It's a little button that looks like that. And then I would type in 0.03, and then I would press equal or enter, depending on your calculator. And that would just spit out 145.8 for you faster. Okay. This number 2, we'll call this problem 2 over here, just real fast. If I was doing this by hand, I would go get rid of the decimal 1, 2, 3 places. So I'm going to fill in a 0 here. Here's why. Because I can go 1, 2, 3 places. So that's why I filled in a 0. I'll put a 0 there. And now I'm dividing 7 into 5,320. And that'd go from there. Okay. But if you're using a calculator, you would just do 0.007, hit the division symbol, which looks like this, then type in 5.32, hit the equal symbol, which looks like this, or it'll say enter, and that'll give you the answer for long division. But that's how to do it by hand. Okay. This one down here, problem 3, I'll call it, at the bottom, I would just move it one place over. So I'd move it one place over here, put it right here. And now I'm dividing 8 into 76.8. All right. Moving on to rounding to the nearest fixed place. So if you want to take a moment and pause the video. Let's talk about rounding to the nearest place then, okay? Tens, hundreds, and thousands. All right, to a fixed place. Example, find the answer of 4.3 divided by 0.7 to the nearest tenth. And you'll get some of this kind of thing in your homework. So as a division problem, that looks like this: 0.7, because it says divided by. Okay, we're dividing this into 4.3. 0.7 into 4.3. Okay, I'm going to model this for you. First step, get rid of the decimal. I moved it once, move it once. goes here, goes here. Okay. Now 4 times 7 is 49. So 4 times 6 is 42. So this goes into the 6 times. 6 times 7 is 42. Subtract, and I get a 1 and a 0. Okay. It says to do it to the nearest 10th place. All right. So this is what you would have to do. I'm going to have to fill in a 0 here. Here's why. In the long division, the step 1 again is to divide. 7 will not divide into 1. Bring down a 0. 7 goes into 10 one time. Answer goes on top. Step 2, multiply. 1 times 7 is 7. Answer goes on the bottom. Step 3, subtract. 7 from 10 is 3. Back to step 1. 7 does not divide into 3. So I got to bring down a 0 and bring it down. Okay. 7 goes into 34 times because 4 times 7 is 28. Step 2, multiply. 4 times the 7 is 28, and the answer goes on the bottom. Step 3 is to subtract. This would give me a 2. Back to step 1. Divide. 7 does not go into 2. All right, this has to go to the nearest 10th place though, right? You see this 10th place over here? Wait a minute, I can stop right now. And here's why. I've done the math out to this is the 10th place, and this is the 100th place. So it says to find the answer to the nearest 10th place. I needed to, I must go to the next place, find what the next number is. This, I'll choose another color here. This 1 right here is the 10th place, okay? After the decimal, it goes 10th, 100th, thousands, 10,000. To the left of the decimal, it goes 1s, 10s, 100s, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, billions. All right, now, and if you didn't know that, you might want to write that out or ask for a decimal chart. You could Google a decimal chart. You need to know where the places are, okay? Because otherwise, how would you know how far to go on this problem and where to stop in what place, okay? The problem says to go to the 10th place. The 1 is in the 10th place. And the rule is when you're rounding, I taught you this already, I hope, underline the number. Step 1, step 2, look to the right. If it's 5 or more, you round up. It's not, it's a 4. So my final answer equals 6.1. And that's my final answer. I'm just circling it. That is rounded to the nearest 10th place as an answer. Okay. Now, I want to say a quick warning, though. When you're doing problems that ask you to round, be careful to pay very close attention to whether or not they ask you to round the numbers first and then divide, or they say round at the end, okay? Notice in my problem here, it says find the answer to 4.3 divided by 0.07 to the nearest tenths. So it's asking for your answer, the final answer to the 10th place. So that's why I did it the way I did it. I just did it normal. I didn't round first, okay? Sometimes it'll give you 2 numbers. I think we just looked at that. Round them first and then multiply them, or round them and then divide them, okay? All right, let's look at the division problem here, okay? A story problem. Mark drove a total of 1,247.5 miles in 5 days. What is the average number of days? Average, when you're doing a story problem, when you see the word average in the sentence that has the question mark, it almost always means divide, just so you know, okay? That's one of those, what they call keywords for division. So when you see average, when you see this average word here, know that if they're asking for the average and it's in the sentence with the question mark, you're dividing, okay? Now, you only have 2 numbers in the problem, okay? You got this long number here and a very short number. So which one would we be dividing into the other one? Well, we wouldn't be dividing this long one into 5, okay? So it would look like this. If I did it by hand, it would be 5 into 1, 2, 4, 7.5. Now I want to point something out here. You'll notice in this particular one, there's no decimal here. So I'm going to just put the decimal in the answer right now, where it goes, right above where it goes. And then I would just do long division. 5 goes into 12 2 times, and this becomes 10, etc. Okay. That's what I would do at this point is do it that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'll stop right there, just kind of going that far, but maybe I should go a little farther. 5 times 9 is 45. So this is going to be a 9 here. 45 This is giving me a 2, doesn't have 5, is 5. That's about far enough. That'd be about my final answer. You can use your calculator though. Just again, I want to say this in my 70 class. It's much faster, but that's how to do it by hand. Last problem here, I think. There are 1.6 kilometers in a mile. How many miles are there in 36.8 kilometers? Well, I'm going to divide. There's this much in 1 mile. Okay. How many miles are there in 3.6 kilometers? Okay. So what I would do is I'd be dividing at this point 1.6 into my 36.8. This is a division story problem right here. See, division story problem. So I'm going to divide it into it to find out and just do the math the way we just taught you. Okay. That is a little bit of review. So we taught you in very fast review, then we taught you how to multiply when you multiply fractions. The rule is basically this: just multiply it like normal. Don't worry about lining up decimals. Do it like normal. Then count how many numbers in the whole problem are to the right of the decimal point, and that's how many times you move it to the left, starting from the far right. Okay. And then in front end rounding, we talked about that. It's the farthest number to the left that's not 0. Round to that place by underlining that place. Look to the right, see if it's 5 or more. If it is, go up 1. Everything else to the right becomes zeros. Talked about some story problems, and we also talked about how to divide. Okay, do it by hand or do it by a calculator. I hope this helps. And if you have any questions, send me an email. And